For our second lesson in statistics, we're going to learn about what we call a box and whisker plot. And basically a box and whisker plot is a diagram that looks like this. Okay, we're going to learn how to create a diagram that looks like this, and we use that diagram, mathematicians use that diagram to summarize a set of data that you've collected using 5 specific numbers. Okay, so if I give you this set of data over here, and I ask you to create a box and whisker plot, then there are 5 specific numbers that you're going to have to figure out. You're going to have to find out, and we can do it by hand, or we can find these 5 numbers also using the calculator. I'm going to show you how to do both. The first thing that you want to do is make sure that your data is in order if you're doing it by hand. If you're doing it in the calculator, then your data doesn't have to be in order. But if you're doing it by hand, you want to make sure that your data is in order first. Now that I've written down my data and I've written them down in order, okay, I want to figure out 5 specific points, which are these points that we have over here. We need to know our max, our min, our first quartile, our second quartile, and our third quartile. And these are words that you haven't heard before, but you're going to see how to find them here by hand and also by using your calculator. So the first easiest things you can find is you can find your min and your max. The max is just simply the biggest number that you have in your set of data. In this case we have 38, so my max is just 38. That's the biggest number, the maximum. Your min is just simply the smallest number in your data, so that's your minimum value, the smallest thing that you have here, in this case a 2. Now the other thing you want to find that's the easiest if you're doing this by hand is just simply your median, which is just the number that's right in the middle of your data. In this case, the number that's right in the middle of my data after I've put it in order is 18. So that's my median, which is also called the second quartile. So you might be asked what's the median, or you might be asked what's the second quartile. Those two mean the same exact thing. And we usually use Q's to represent different quartiles. So this is my second quartile, so I'm going to write Q2. Once you've found your median, and if you have an even set of numbers, and meaning there's 2 numbers when you get to the middle, all you have to do is add them and divide by 2, and you get your median, like I showed you in the previous lesson for central tendency. Once I found my median, I'm going to look to the left of my data. So now I'm only focused on these numbers right here. Okay, and the number that is in the middle of this part of my data is going to be my first quartile. So I look to the left. In the left, the number in the middle, which is 8, is going to be my first quartile. So Q1, which is also known as the lower quartile. Okay, so in this case, my first quartile, which is my lower quartile, is 8. Forgot to write down my median, which was 18. And now to find my upper quartile, or the third quartile, which is both the same thing, I'm going to look to the right of my median. So I'm going to look in the right set of data, and I'm going to check, okay, what's the number in the middle there? In this case, the number in the middle of the data that's to the right of my median is the number 30. So that is my third quartile, or my upper quartile. Okay? So now that we found these 5 important numbers, you always use these 5 numbers every time that you're creating a box and whisker plot. We're going to use these numbers to figure out how to create something that looks like this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take first my min, my smallest number, which is 2, and I'm going to draw a line right there. Okay, I'm going to take my max, which is 38, and I'm going to draw a line above that number as well. And there's no specific height of how much above or below, above the number line it should be, as long as your line is right above the number that it should have. Once I draw a line for my min and my max, I'm going to go ahead and draw a line for my median, which is 18. Okay, I'm going to go ahead, so here I have my min, here I have my max. When you're drawing them, you don't necessarily have to label them, but it'll help for multiple choice questions to label your box and whisker plots so that you know what each number represents. This is my median, or Q2. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and go to my first quartile, or my lower quartile, and put a line there. So I'm going to put a line at 8. And I'm going to put a line at my third quartile, which was 30. Okay, so for my box and whisker plot, I'm gonna go ahead and create my whiskers. It's like the whiskers of a cat right outside. Okay, so I created my whiskers, and then in the middle, in the center, I'm gonna create my box. And that is what we call a box and whisker plot. So as you can see, it doesn't have to be perfect. As long as your lines are above the numbers that they're supposed to be. Some of the things that they can ask you about the range, which is just the difference between your maximum and your minimum. So in this case, if I ask you for the range of this set of data, then you would do 38 minus 2 to give you 36. Or they can ask you for the interquartile range, which is just your third quartile minus your first quartile. In this case, 30 minus 8, which is 22. So what this box and whisker plot does is that it takes a set of data and it breaks it up into 4 quarters. So every little piece of this box and whisker plot, every time you get to one of those 5 numbers, you're looking at a quarter of your data. So when I get to my first quartile here, that's a quarter. Right here, it's a quarter of my data, 25% of my data. When I get to the median, between the first quartile and the median, that's another 25% of my data. Between the median and the third quartile, that's another 25% of my data. And between the third quartile and the max, that is another 25% of my data, right? Because we broke this set of data up into 4 different quarters. We went to the middle, then we took the middle of one of the halves, and took the middle of the other half. Okay, now to do it by hand, this is what you would do. But if you have the calculator app that I've shared with you guys before, then this is actually a lot simpler to calculate. If you have the app, then all you have to do is take your set of data points. If you're doing it in the app, they do not have to be in order. Okay, you can do what I taught you in the lesson for central tendency. So go to stat, putting your data points inside of L1. Go back to stat and calculate the one variable statistics. The same thing that I taught you in central tendency. So make sure if you haven't done that lesson, you have to do it before you do this one. Okay, and then you can get your 5 sets of points, the 5 points that you need from the calculator, and you don't actually have to like break it up in half and then do another half and all that stuff, and you don't have to find all the different medians. If you put it in the calculator, then the calculator actually gives you the 5 numbers that we calculated by hand. It tells you your min is 2, your max is 38, your first quartile is 8, your median is 18, and your third quartile is 30, which is the exact same thing that we got using the calculator. And then basically you take those 5 sets of numbers, and you create your box and whisker plot the same way that I've done before when I created it by hand. For multiple choice questions, one of the things that I would suggest is if I give you, or any other question really, if I give you the diagram already drawn, which is going to be the case for your task, you're not going to have to create any of these, but you're going to have to answer questions based on a diagram. Then the easiest thing to do is, if you can, if you have a printout, or even if you can write on the screen, or even if you can sketch it on a piece of Lucif or whatever, is always label your diagram, right? So I know that these 2 whiskers are my min and my max, and then my quartiles are in order. So here's my first quartile, here's my third quartile, here's my first quartile, my second quartile or my median, and here is my third quartile. I can also say this is my lower quartile and my upper quartile. So if I'm asking you for the 5 different things that we need to identify, the first thing you should want to do is just label your diagram, and then from there, all you have to do is identify the 5 different numbers. So when you submit your mini lesson, I want you to tell me, just go ahead and write down the 5 numbers based on this diagram that we would need in order to create this box and whisker plot. Meaning, tell me what's your max, what's your min, your lower quartile, your median, and your third quartile. And just as another hint, when you get to for example, if I want to find my min, I'm right here at this point, and if I go down to the number line, it'll be 16, so my min is 16, and I continue from there. So then you can just go ahead and give me the ones that are remaining.